A committee will be formed to look into so-called genuine human concerns of the LGBTQIA plus community, is what the centre has told the Supreme Court during the hearing on petitions seeking legal status for same-sex marriage. The human concerns here refer to several problems faced by same-sex couples in their day-to-day life, whether it is opening a joint bank account or adding a partner as a nominee as for an insurance policy. There's so many examples, those are just a couple. But this is any which way the Supreme Court rules on the issue of same-sex marriage will be a landmark judgment. But I think after a genuine sense of hope that perhaps there would be a favourable verdict, given what some of the observations which have been made by the Chief Justice and the other judges, there is also now a realization or a recognition that there is the other argument which has been raised, which is a strong argument raised by the Solicitor General, that there is a legislative process in place in the country and that this cannot be changed without a legislative process. But is this solution as an interim, that there's going to be this committee to look into the requirements of the petitioners and others, sufficient? Joining us now, Harish Iyer, an equal rights activist and petitioner. I'm also joined by Chainika Shah, the petitioner in this case, Shashank Shekhar Jha, and also Zainab Patel. Let me just go straight across to Harish Iyer. Mr. Iyer, is this at all a satisfactory solution?
Well, you can propose to set up a panel, but who sits on the panel? How will the panel be operated? All these are matters of concern. So we have Garima Griha houses which are there all over the country, which is for transgender people, but they haven't received adequate funding since many days. So the whole thing is, I think I really welcome that they have said something like that. But how this would function? Are they really going to listen to challenges faced by the LGBTQI plus community? Is something that we need to, that only time will tell.
This shouldn't be really read as a T20 match, and I must confess that I'm one of those who's actually doing it in terms of the number of programs I do every week. I mean, there are strong arguments on either side, and the Supreme Court will rule on this. But ultimately, do you believe that the argument that this has to go to Parliament, if there's going to be a new law which is enacted, is something which is legally so strong that to actually go beyond that is going to be difficult?
Well, it is going to be challenging. Even if we win this in the Supreme Court, I think that there is going to be opposition. But when has change been easy? We fought for many years for Section 377 to be read down, and even if we win this in the courts, but the real fight for us would be in the hearts and minds of people. And the change has begun. I can see a whole tsunami of positive reactions.
Sure.
And
Harish, let me just bring in a few others. I just wanted to bring in Chainika Shah. Chainika, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Could you just give us, your sense? But the question is the same. Do you believe that that unfortunately in today's reality in India, this is essentially as far as you can go, administrative changes to make the process of ostracization hopefully disappear?
I think, Vishnu, I'll go with what our advocate said in the court. This is just one intermediary step.
Yeah.
I don't think that the right to marriage that we are arguing is taken back because they're giving this. This is something that was long overdue since 2018, since the Navte Johar judgment, since 2014, since NASA judgment. There are many responsibilities that the state already had, and they have not been fulfilled. So I see this committee as one step towards fulfilling some of the responsibilities of the state to make sure that queer and trans people not only get recognition, but they are able to live their life to their fullest extent. And our petition is actually talking from the point of view of people who have been anonymized. They are running away from familial violence. They are wanting to get married, and they're seeing marriage as a security from the fact that families and communities are not accepting their relationships. And in my understanding, if I look at the Special Marriage Act, I see it as a very progressive legislation that India had way back in the 1950s, which was actually recognizing that there are certain relationships that communities and religions do not accept, but the state accepts them. Those were interreligious, intercaste marriages at that time. I think 2023, so many years down the line, 70 years down the line, we are at a point in history when we have to recognize who are the people who communities are not recognizing, and hence the state has to step in. So for me, the understanding of a constitutional state that we have has to build on the notion that you cannot discriminate. You cannot say something like, you are unequal, you will get something less than somebody else. This is not a language that the state can use. This is a language that non-state actors are free to use. They keep using it. But a state that believes in the constitution of this country cannot use this language. So I would still think, I don't think that the case is closed. I think the case goes on. Our side is as strong as it was when we began. And we continue to insist that Special Marriage Act, if it does not change, is discriminatory. And now the choice is before us whether we want to change that discriminatory provision within Special Marriage Act to the Constitutional Court, or we want to do something else.
Zainab Patel, is it your belief that one of the problems that you face in this particular struggle is that you don't have all-party consensus? It's not enough to say that, look, the ruling government is opposed to same-sex marriage. The fact that the entire political class doesn't want to venture in this direction of what many consider equality is perhaps a huge setback.
Not really. I think the fact is that you will never find political consensus on many thorny issues faced by the community. And I really don't believe that you need political consensus, because right now, I'm not even venturing into that step where you need to have political consensus on a issue which has been...
Which is based on rights. That's your central argument. It's rights. You aren't looking for everybody's endorsement. You're looking for an interpretation of the Constitution and the interpretation of rights, right? That's the census.
Vishnu, I am not looking for everyone's endorsement. I am only looking for a constitutional affirmation for the right to marry to the Supreme Court. What the court has in the interim done is ask for a committee. Now, if you would just permit me 1 minute exactly to give my stand on what this committee does. I was one of the petitioners in the Nalsa case. When the Nalsa case was being heard, an expert committee chaired no less by the then cabinet secretary was looking into the issue of trans welfare. That report never saw the light of the day. It was never submitted to the court when the Nalsa judgment was when the hearings were being heard. It was submitted only when the NDA government came into power and they sought a clarification. Those recommendations in that report is yet to be turned into a policy, which the protection of transgender persons' rights and its rules had said. Within 2 years of the rules getting formalized by the government is supposed to come up with a policy. It's been like, this is the 3rd year and there is no policy roadmap yet. The second thing that I want to tell you is a totally radically different story. Almost after 60 years after independence, the status of women report was commissioned by the government of India, and it was a presidential committee. It was headed by the president.
Right.
And none of those recommendations, which included trans people, have still seen the light.
Zainab, I'm just interrupting you because we've got Shopun Dasgupta coming up, and before that, I want to go across to Shashank Shekhar Jha, who opposes same-sex marriage. How would you reply to what Zainab says, who basically, and she argues that, look, in terms of protection of transgenders, there have been committees which have been called for, there have been movement, efforts which have been made, but it's not come to anything substantive. Why should anybody now believe that a government-formed committee is going to actually address all of these changes in a time-bound manner?
Namaste Vishnuji and every fellow panelist here. Vishnuji, the problem with the petitioners and on the panel of yours is that me, or for that point anyone who is opposing the petitioners in the court, or for that point on social media, are not against petitioners. We are only against this proper channel in which they are trying to push their own movement or for that point agenda. Now you have a heterosexual society or system in place, and that is not disputable. Now, in that heterosexual society, you want to accommodate non-heterosexual. And where are you approaching?
I'm sorry, how in our heterosexual society do you not have homosexuals or LGBTQI people presently?
Are there two societies?
No. Kindly do not disturb. No. What I meant was that the system or the law or for that point legislation in which you are asking for the amendment or notification or declaration or whatsoever, that is Special Marriage Act and Hindu Marriage Act. That is for heterosexuals. You are seeking rights for homosexuals and heterosexuals. Is that possible?
On what basis? On what basis do you say that the Special Marriage Act is for a man or a woman as defined by their genitalia? The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court clearly said that you can't just define a man or a woman on the basis of their biology. The construct of male and female is much larger, you know. I mean, of man and woman is much more non-linear, as it were.
Unfortunately, because I am also an officer of court, unfortunately, we officers of court and both bar and bench are trying to be expert of everything, while we are not. We need to understand that who will decide who is a male and a female. In 1995, the Nobel Prize winner in biology has clearly said, and this is prevalent today also, only one who is having sperm can be a male.
No, that doesn't. No, that's not a definition of a man or a woman or anybody who chooses not to be a man or a woman. The identity is very different. So it could be anything you want it to be.
See. We clearly need to understand the difference between biology and sociology.
It's not sociology.
It's not sociology at all. We should not become doctors in place of the officers of law. And point number two, Vishnuji, just 10 seconds, Vishnuji, and one more point which was very important. See, even if there is a valid argument from the part of petitioners or for that point this community, which is the correct forum to address that? The parliament, the assemblies, and this is not what
look, I want to end this part of the program with just one small assertion. Identity is not determined by sociology. It's just a small point over there. I'll leave it over there, and I'd like to thank you all very much. I will keep debating this till the verdict actually happens.
You have to just allow 1/2 second. When we came to ask the court for a social contract, they brought biology in. We were not the ones to bring biology. We came to assert for a social contract of marriage. Now, when you're telling us go to the right forum, maybe the honorable lawyer can actually go and file a petition on behalf of all of us in the Supreme Court, forcing the government to kind of debate this and to come up with a law on it.
That is not possible.
All right.
Can I just say one thing?
Okay, no, I need to wrap this up over here.
Can I just say one thing, Vishnu?
I can't because I'm out of time.